My guest today started her content creation journey over a decade ago as one of the beauty girls on YouTube. But during the pandemic, as things started to change for a whole lot of us, she found herself drawn to the tech side of things. And through quite a few dips and dives and twists and turns, she's now making a name for herself on Instagram and TikTok as your Tech Bestie. And she's got a whole lot to say about making a living from creating content online. So please welcome Tayllor Lloyd to the podcast. Hey, Tayllor, welcome to the
Hello.
podcast. I'm so excited to have you on and learn about your ins and outs of content creation through the years. Of course, I know some of the story, but a lot of the story I don't know. So I just wonder if you would start off by introducing yourself to my audience and let them know how you've been moving in and out and back in to content creation over the years and how that's worked out for you.
Hello. I'm Tayllor Lloyd. I'm currently your tech bestie, but I wasn't always. I guess my content journey is kind of long. I started in 2013, so that was like 11 years ago. It doesn't feel like that, and I feel like I'm aging myself when I say that, but 2013 is where I started, and it was YouTube actually. That was like my main platform, and of course, it was like the beauty guru era. It was like everybody was doing makeup and fashion, and that just was YouTube. I felt like that was a big part of YouTube at the time, and it was thriving, and so I just jumped right in. And I did that for years and years and years. Let's see, that's 2013. Coinciding with that, I was a MAC makeup artist and I did full time. Yeah, for 7 years. I stepped away to do Bobby Brown for a little bit, but yeah, I was like a MAC makeup artist. So daytime I was working at MAC, and then nighttime I was coming home, filming videos, being a mom, like all the things. And I did that. I would say content creation wise, I was in that space for about 7 years. I think around the pandemic is when I started to pivot out of beauty and into tech. At that time, I was learning software development, front stack, full stack development. I went to a coding boot camp and I just really got interested in the technical side of things. And then I started to shift my content a bit. It went into software. Then I was telling people like tools you can use to, better your business. And I was doing like business coaching and helping small businesses with their tech stack and things like that. And I did that until, let's see, I've only been in the tech review hardware space for about a year and a few months. So that's even newer. I've kind of pivoted from business into more tech, and that's where I am now. And this is probably the busiest I've been as a content creator. Normally, I would have like a job or full-time job. Normally, I don't have a full-time job and a part-time job and content creation. That's like my normal flow. Right now, I just contract with Miss Tony and Raven, which I love that. And that's like more of a passion project than a job, but I love doing that. And then I'm like full-time content creator outside of that. So yeah, that's my journey. It's kind of a unique one, but that's the
Yeah.
journey.
And just for the people who don't know, Tayllor actually works with us at Raven Elise TV in a variety. I'm not even going to tell you what her title is because it's a whole bunch of different titles depending on the day. But we love having her expertise and her how she can give her perspective from the corporate world. She can give her perspective from the content creation world. She can give her perspective from the tech arena and
Mhm.
also from creativity. But I'm just wondering because you have gone in, I mean, I guess when you first got on my radar, I'm not sure if you were like in Dallas. Did you live in Dallas at a certain
So
point?
I came straight from St. Louis to Austin. However, my sister-in-law at the time lived in Dallas. So I spent a lot of time there because we were like, it almost felt like every other weekend. Like I would go to her place, then she would come here because we were so used to being neighbors. And
Right.
so even though we weren't neighbors, we were like in different cities, we still were used to like hanging out all the time. So I spent a hefty amount of time in Dallas, but I came straight from St. Louis to Austin. That was in 2020. So October of the pandemic, like that was when we moved here, and we've been
Yeah.
here since.
And I think like I said, when you got on my radar, you were doing beauty, definitely lashes. I remember lashes.
Yeah.
So, like all these different, you're like me. I'm have a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of ADD going on. I want to be doing
Yeah.
all the things. I see shiny bright objects. I want to go
Mm-hmm.
this direction or that direction. But what kind of guides you towards making a switch or pivoting or going into something different?
Yeah.
What is it
Well,
that's inside of you that makes you want to go ahead and do that?
I think it starts with boredom. I'm gonna be completely honest. Like I think I do things and I'm like, I've capped out. Like I feel like, oh, I've done all that I can do in this space, or like I've contributed what I think I can contribute, or my interest like in my personal life just shifts and it's like it's no longer aligned. And so I've always been a person where it's like I'm not afraid to be seen trying. I'm not afraid to start from scratch. I like to follow like it's like follow my heart. Like I go where I'm passionate, you know. And I find that I have good results when I do that. So I did it once and I didn't fail. And I was like, I'm just keep doing it again. Like that's just the flow of how I'm gonna, treat these things. Also, I'm horrified of doing one thing for my entire life and then thinking back and being like, oh, I wish I would have tried X, Y, and Z. Like I never want to be the person that looks back and is like, dang, I didn't at least try, you know? Now I try and I fail, that's another thing, but I want to at least try things. So I feel like that kind of pushes me to just do it.
Well, I think that answers my next question because I was wondering like how you decided to hone in on tech, become tech bay, tech best friend. What is it?
Take Bay, yeah.
How you decided to become tech bay? And I was wondering if it was like more passion or was it more just opportunity or profitability? I mean,
Yeah.
what mostly drove your decision to go in that direction?
Yeah, I would say passion first because I'm a nerd, like in all the things that I've done, I've always geeked out. Even in 2013, when I was on YouTube, I cared about my quality. I was like, I want my camera and my lights to look good. Like I was doing research back then. So that's always transpired into anything that I do. And I just felt like no matter what, that's like the one thing that's aligned throughout this whole process is like either the software or the hardware. Like either one, I care a lot about, right? And it doesn't matter if I'm building a website for my last brand or I'm a makeup artist and I'm trying to get my lighting correct for my YouTube channel. I'm always looking at software or hardware. Yeah, it's like when it came to like makeup or lashes or whatever I was doing, there was always tech involved. And that always I had a strong interest in that. So I feel like at this point in my life, I just decided to follow what the thing, the big thing, the big thing in the room. I could always do these side projects and enjoy them, but the main thing for me was like the technology behind whatever I was doing or building. So it was like an easy passion project for me, starting off. I didn't know. I had a feeling that it was you can make a good money in this space, right? But I didn't know the insights. I had no one. I had no community in the tech space when I started, so I had no one to ask to say like how much, how good is it, And even though I was watching tech influencers here and there weren't a lot that looked like me. So outside of the main people, like we know, like Justine, MKB, like the heavy hitters, like that was pretty much all I was seeing. And I was just like, I know I'm not going to be their size, but let me just jump in and see what's going on. And yeah, so it started with passion. And then as I started to grow, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, like you can do well in this space and be passionate about it. And it was just like a win-win for me.
So this time around, then, how long, more or less, did it take for you to start getting noticed? I mean, I know you've been
Yeah.
on brand deals, I know you've worked with brands, I know you probably got some things going on, but when you made this last pivot, which I
Hmm.
don't know, what has it been a year yet?
Yeah. Just like a year and 2 or 3 months.
Right. So you
So
just
yeah.
like, okay, I'm gonna do this now. How long did it take for you to get on people's radar?
Yeah. So I left my job at Apple in April, and I like to use that as like a point of reference for me because at that point I knew I was gonna like take it serious and like really put my all into it. I was like, if I leave this job, this good full-time job, like I have to really perform, So I would say I left in April. Summer was interesting. It was a little scary, okay, because I was just basically living off of my savings because I hadn't had a lot of brand deals coming in at that time, and I was just vibes. But I feel like August, September, August and September, I started getting actual like brand deals. Like I think that was my first time working with like Microsoft, and I had got reached out to by Canon at that point, and I was building a relationship with them, and like more brands started to like, I guess I just would pop up on their radar. Are there, For You page? And I started to get noticed, and I started having more conversations around that time. It wasn't extremely lucrative, right, at that point, but I was having conversations with brands about partnerships. So I felt that it was picking up. So April, May, June, July, August, 5-ish months, like 4 or 5 months. Yeah. I would say like in that period of time, I was pretty dang consistent. I was posting, at least 3 to 4, if not 5 times a week. I was also like trying to build my TikTok at the time, and I was really trying to be present and grow a community. And I was really focused in on like community, not just followers. Like
Yes.
followers seem good, but they're a vanity metric. They don't amount to money the way people think they do. So that was not a focus of mine. My thing was like, do people care? And can I show these brands that people care what I'm talking about and that they're interested, and they'll click a link and they'll buy the thing, and they're interested in what I'm talking about. And it's not just like, I post a video and then everyone's ghost. Like, cool. Like I wanted community, and I know community could drive those results. So I posted consistently. I focused in on community. And maybe like 5 months later, I felt like it was starting to pick up.
So you're growing on both platforms, but did you start posting on Instagram and TikTok at the same time? And are you on any other platforms?
Actually, I felt like when I really started to lean into tech, TikTok was where I was like growing faster, and especially in the beginning. I was nervous to pivot my Instagram again. And in the beginning, I was like, oh, I don't know. Like, are they going to be receptive? Because, this is kind of far off from what I've been doing. So I started on TikTok, and when I saw stuff picking up there, I was like, oh, well, if they like it, maybe they will on Instagram too. And then I kind of like syndicated my content in both. I am on YouTube. I am not consistent on YouTube because short form has been king for me. For the past year, and that's pretty much where a lot of my partnerships are. That's where my community is. So I've just not found my footing yet with long form, but I am on YouTube too.
Okay. Okay. And so your style, let me just talk about that. Because I examine your content because sometimes, if you're not talking about, what pop culture or something fun or something
Mm-hmm.
foolish, it's
Mm-hmm.
hard to maintain attention on these platforms, even for short form. And I think you
Yeah.
do an excellent job with just the whole vibe. It's like, this is what I like to say about people's content, about business, about anything. If I can have a business or a channel or a something to attract an audience to that kind of operated like Starbucks does. You know how Starbucks, you just be want to just go in there. Most of them just want to sit in there and hang out.
Yeah.
Whatever else you think about the brand, they've got this thing. No matter where you go, no matter what city I'm in, if I can find a Starbucks and sit down in there, I know the music's going to be right. I know the atmosphere's going to, I know it's going to be smelling good. I know they're going to have a consistent food product and coffee product. It's just like, that's how I look at your content. It's like, yeah, there's Tayllor. I know what she, I don't really know specifically what you're going to be talking about,
Yeah.
but I kind of do know
Yeah.
what you're going to be talking about. And it feels comfortable. I think we talked about this for the work that we do on Raven Lee's TV. We talked about this too, having a consistency of brand in your content.
Mm-hmm.
How do you pull that off?
I am not a personal branding expert, and I realized that when I started to understand what those people like their minds. I'm like, okay, that's not my mind. Like some people can execute it so well because they know exactly what their people are looking for. And I think that branding comes from like you, right? Like it's like who you are, but it comes from really, really, really thoroughly understanding your audience. And you do have to get really specific to be able to have success, like wild success in that, like the best content creators know exactly what their people want. They know exactly when to give it to them. They know exactly how they want it. And when you know people and you can predict that, whatever you do is going to perform because you're like, you know what I mean? Like you already know. You're like, I'm going to post this and it's going to go crazy because this is what they've been asking for the past 2 weeks. I think for me, I maybe don't have it down to a science quite like that. Like I definitely still have posts that I consider like flops, right? But what I will say is, for the most part, I speak to my audience in the same way. I'm very digestible. I try to make my content super digestible. It's technology. It's not rocket science. And that's how I treat it, right? So when I make my content, I'm like, yeah, there's a bunch of technical terms for this, but here's what it really does. And here's why you need it, or here's why you don't need it, you know? And I feel like part of my brand is just like, I say tech content, but are you smarter than a fifth grader? Because I need it like that. I need for you to break it down for me. Don't tell me all that other stuff. Do I need it or not? Can I use it or not? So I feel like my branding is wrapped into that. But as far as like anything outside of like just how I create my content based on breaking it down and making it simple, I don't know. That's always my goal. My goal is just like make it simple, make it digestible.
Well, you said you have to know your audience. You have to know what they want. So when you're just getting started, how do you figure out what it is? What in the heck do y'all want from me?
Yeah,
Do you ask them?
I feel like when you start off, you just post. To me, it's like it's clean slate, right? Let's just say you want to talk about flowers, okay, and you have 30 followers. If you have a special way of talking about flowers, you're gonna post your content consistently in your special way because it's gonna give people a chance to discover you for who you are. And to me, that's like a big win because then you don't have to change much. You don't have to like do anything super weird. It's just you showing up as you versus when you're pivoting. I feel like, and we talk about this with RETV, like when you pivot, there's this window of not everybody's going to enjoy this. My main people might not like this. I might have a flop era for 3 or 4 months until I can find my people. But when you're starting fresh, be yourself, show up consistently, try to get the best quality you can get. If that's shooting with your iPhone, shoot with the back camera. Like I think being consistent, having decent quality, having good audio, those are things that can help you grow pretty rapidly because a consumer wants to like consume good content. Doesn't matter what it is. You could be kicking rocks, but if it looks good and you make it interesting, you have a good story behind it, they're going to pay attention. You know what I mean?
You said all that very blasé, like all you have to do is, but what you said was you have to be consistent, you have to be interesting, you have to have good lighting, you have to have good sound, you have to tell a good story. That was
Yeah.
probably just half of the stuff you mentioned.
Yeah.
And that's not easy. People are popping up and wanting to be content creators,
Mhm.
and that may not be our core competency.
Mhm.
We may know, there may be people out there who know tech
Yeah.
better than you do. There may
Yeah.
be people out there who know whatever, but translating that to your audience on social
Mhm.
media takes some
It's hard.
takes some doing. And I always like to listen. We talked about MKB, and I typically show his content to the people that I work with inside of my programs when they're
Yeah.
struggling about getting started. And I was like, look at this.
Mhm.
And I love that he left his first videos up.
Mhm. Because where do you start? Yeah.
What? And that's, I know that was years and years ago and he was young, but almost everybody starts off kind
Somewhere.
of not being great unless you've
Yeah.
had some other channel or some other, experience in this.
Mhm.
But and then you get tripped up because you're like, wait a minute, I know the content I want to talk about. I know what's going to add value to my audience. But I mean, I was sitting right here when I said that last time. Are they gonna? And this is what I get from a lot of people I work with. That's boring. It's boring. I'm just doing the
Mhm.
same. I'm doing the same thing. And it's like, no, it's not. It's almost
Mhm.
it. I can see it, and it feels comforting to me. But when I go to do it, it feels like, oh, I should be doing something different, something more.
Yeah.
And your success has proven Yeah, you do. Yeah, I love the way you put your little workouts in there. I love the way
Hmm.
you may show how you're setting up your office. But if you're translating valuable information to your audience, you've got a nice little setup there. You're
Hmm.
showing it, you're telling it, and that's it. And I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah. Thank you.
But it's not, I don't want to give anybody the impression that it's just easy.
No, and I think that more people need to say. I think it's hard because when people say content creation is hard, I think automatically people want to compare it to harder things, right? Like when content creators say, "Oh, my job is I had a hard day." Like somebody will come out and be like, "Well, doctors have really hard days." Both things are true, right? So I think people steer away from saying, "Oh, it's hard," because a lot of times when they compare it to things, people take it out of context and they're like, "Well, you're ungrateful or whatever, whatever." But it is not an easy job. It's not an easy job. Just like a lot of jobs are not easy jobs. And while people need training and school and development to do them, it's a similar aspect here. Despite what people think, really successful content creators, and I'm not talking about people who just go viral, and like have virality and have followers, but aren't like, it's not running as a business. I'm talking about the people who run it as a full-time business. They're S corps, they have payroll, those type of people. It's not easy for them. It is a lot of work. And just because it's not perceived because you don't get to see it all, I think people think like it's a quick come up. And it's like, I can see where you may get that from. And I've seen people come up quickly on it, but sustainability is so important in this space. And like we use Raven as a good example of Raven's been doing this for a very long time. That's not always everyone's story, right? Like that's not the normal that people be doing this for 10 plus years and still be scaling up and having success. That comes from treating it like a business and running it like a business. And I think that part of it is a lot of work.
Well, you're right. It's a lot of work. And I heard you say it's not an easy job. And that brings me to the next thing I want to talk about because
Yeah.
recently I noticed a post. It was a post by some content creators actually talking about what could possibly be a glitch in one of the platform's payment processes.
Mm-hmm.
And they were wanting to call attention to it. And they wanted to know if
Mm-hmm.
any other creators had experienced this, and if so, would they not call it out to the platform? And then I just went through the comments, and I was so dismayed. I mean, I was just clutching my pearls because there were so many people in the comments saying, "Okay, well, it's time to get a real job." And this is from content creators who've been in the game, like you say, almost 10 years, and
Mm-hmm.
have made who I do know personally have built a business around it.
Oh yeah.
And I do know that they're hard workers, but to see the number of people in the comments saying, well, this social media thing couldn't last forever. That's why you need
Yeah.
a traditional job, as if traditional jobs don't have risks associated with them too.
Yeah.
Anybody who's ever been laid off can tell you.
Yeah.
But is I'm gonna just put this simply. I think I know the answer. But is creating content on social media a quote unquote real job?
Yeah. Here's how I perceive it, and this is my opinion on it. Real jobs generate real income. So in my mind, if you're making real income, spendable income that you can pay your bills with and, save and do all the things that you would do with real income from a job, then it is a job. Like, you know what I mean? Like if you're making money from the thing, then, it is considered a job to me. So is content creation a job? Yeah, to me it is. I think that it depends on how people define real job. Like some people may say real jobs are only things that you have to get degrees for, like, and go to school and like graduate. And so if you didn't get a degree for this and graduate and go to school for it, and like, then it's not a real job. And that may be that person's perspective on it. And you can't say they're wrong for perceiving it that way. But for me, I look at jobs as, are you making money? Because I've had some odd jobs. Okay. Like I used to deliver newspapers at 14. Okay. And I used to get paid in cash for it. Is that a real job? I used to be out from like 3 a.m. to 7 a.m. I don't know. Some people may be like, that's not a real job. I don't know. I made real money from it. So to me, that was a job. And this is no different. But I know that there is lack of respect for content creators, you know? And I see all sides of it. I understand people's frustration with it, you know, especially like me being someone who there's plenty of times where I would have loved to be full time, but I just wasn't generating enough income. And so I had to go work what people would consider a real job. And maybe that was like frustrating for me, you know, because it's like, oh, well, I'd love to do that instead, but I can't because I have to pay these bills, you know? And I think sometimes frustration comes from that. And people are like, we need to get a real job because I have a real job, so you should have one too, you know? But
I've
to
also
me,
heard it described as a traditional job because I was
yeah,
reading those comments like, oh, it's time to get a traditional job. You should have known that you cannot make a consistent living on social media because, only a traditional job. But then you use the word job, we also use the word business.
and it is a
Social
business.
media can be a business. Now, for me, I think about a job as something that you have to show up for. And if you don't show up for it, you don't get paid.
Yeah.
And in some cases, like me, I used to be a personal chef. We called it a personal chef business, but it was really a personal chef job with me just as the solo chef because I didn't go cook for people. I did not get no money.
Yeah.
But however, if you're like my friend Deb, who hired several personal chefs under her brand,
Yeah.
therefore that business can earn money for her while
Without
she
her.
is not cooking, then that is more so a business. But in any case, it could be a hybrid, a job/business,
Yeah.
creators who have S corps, people we know who have S corps have a business because they have employees and
Yeah.
staff and expenses. But then they
Taxes.
all don't even mention the taxes. They do also, because they are the face of the brand, they also have to show up regularly in order for things to keep going.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
are you saying, and I'm just looking at the people who feel like social media isn't a real job or even is it maybe not even a viable business, that you could say that about any business. That,
Yeah.
well, that's what you get.
Technically.
You have a business,
Yeah.
take those risks. You might not get
Yeah.
paid. When you have a
Yeah.
job, you go get that paycheck. When you have a
Yeah.
business, people may not pay you.
There's risk in all things. You know what I mean? There's risk in all things. And I think it solely depends on the type of person you are and the type of risk you're willing to take. And that is where you fall where you fall. When you decide those things, you fall where you fall. You know, that's why some people are better as entrepreneurs. That's why some people are comfortable in corporate. I think I've always thought this. To me, it does not matter what people do. I don't care if you have a 9 to 5. I don't care if you run a business. I don't care if you do both. If it works for you, it works for you. Like, and I think there's no shame in doing whatever you do. Like, you shouldn't be embarrassed if you're a content creator. You shouldn't be embarrassed if you work at a bank. You shouldn't be, whatever it is that you're doing, if it's working for you, if your bills are being paid, if your well-being is being taken care of, that move on. Like, you got it. So I don't know. I see that debate and I'm like, it's all perspective and everyone's perspective is so different. And I'm like those people where you're like, someone says the sky is green and you're like, okay. Cause it's like, I just don't have the energy to like, that's your opinion and you have the right to have that. So like, go crazy, if that's how you feel.
Yes, I wish I could be more like that. I do feel that way for the most part, but sometimes it's, I get irritated when there's, I don't know any other word to say, ignorance involved, meaning that you just don't know. You
Yeah.
don't know how it works. And the majority
Yes.
of the
Don't
people
know.
who are not in this space
They don't
really
know.
don't understand how it works.
Yeah. Yeah. At all.
Every day
Yeah.
I run into people who don't understand, well, how do you get paid? Well, how do you make money at this? Well, when in fact, I believe that anybody who has a business, especially a B2C business, needs to have some kind of social media presence because otherwise, all these other marketing channels are not really getting the eyeballs
Yeah.
that they used to get. That's a whole nother thing. But I also heard from a friend recently that as we were talking about this social media, is it a real job? Is it not a real job? Is it, should you, oh, well, just go find something else to do if you,
Yeah.
you don't like the way things are on social media. She said that she felt like most people on social media are not making money.
Hmm.
And I was like, well, if you're using the word most, you might be right.
Yeah.
You might be right. If you're going to talk about the however million, you know,
Hmm.
YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook accounts they are, some of them
Yeah.
are not trying to make money.
Right. They're just having
Not
fun.
for the purpose of making money. I
Hmm.
didn't dig into that a little bit deeper, but I think what she was saying is there are people who are attempting to earn income from social media, who would like to earn an income from social media
Hmm.
or promote their business on social media, who are not really being successful at it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that because I was one of those people for so long, I can absolutely believe that. You know what I mean? To a capacity. Now, I can't tell you the amount of people, or like, I wouldn't generalize and say most or some or all. Like, I don't know, right? Because I just don't have that type of visibility. But I know I personally, from experience, was a person who could not generate full-time income from my social media platforms for a long time. So, being that, I know that it exists, right? But I've seen people say that in a way to like self-soothe, where, well, they'll say it like, all these people on the internet, no one's even making money. And I don't think that statement is true. Do you know what I mean? When people say it like that, like they're just pretending to make money. And I'm just like, no, that's not the case, like at all. There are lots of people who make lots of money and they do extremely well for themselves. And they're maybe not sharing all of that publicly, but there's lots of examples of people who are, like tons. So I think it's, I think that comes from like, and depending on the context that it's said, right? Because if you're just saying like most people, they're having a hard time, that's different than like no one's even making money. I think in the way that you speak it, it's like money mindset, your mindset and your beliefs around money and how, you can never get ahead, or like that would never work for you. And so you project that on other people when that's not necessarily the case. But um, yeah, I think it is like perspective. Like how are these people saying it and how do they see it? But I think two things can exist. Lots of people are trying and haven't gotten there yet. And there are also lots of people who were trying for a long time and have gotten there. So duality, both things can be true.
Absolutely. And then the idea that you said they're not making any money, that's relative. That's relative. There may be someone, say it's a young mother, stay-at-home
Hmm.
mom, who started social media on the side, social media business, and who may be making, extra $500 a month. That may be
Hmm.
great for her family's bottom line
Hmm.
to pay a
Hmm.
couple of bills. And someone else may say, well, that's no money, but
Hmm.
it's money to her.
$1, $1. You know what I mean? It
Especially
is. Yeah.
if it can be created passively. Um, just the I. But here's the thing: you sound like, I think that you're a lot like me. You've always had this entrepreneurial spirit. By the time
Yeah.
when you said that you was throwing newspapers at 14,
Yeah.
I wasn't doing that, but I did have early aspirations and was always starting some kind of a
Hmm.
business. Whether it was, selling cupcakes in 11th grade, or you know uh, typing college student term papers on my IBM Selectric, or
Yeah.
doing all these different things. And I always had the idea that I wanted to, quote unquote, if you say start a business, you can say business, but basically just work for myself.
Yeah.
Always loved to do that. But nowadays, and even nowadays, when I think about anything else that I could be doing out here in these streets other than social media,
Hmm.
would lead me right back to social media, because I've been there trying to
Yeah.
get bit customers for my house cleaning business.
Hmm.
I put out little flyers and put them on people's doors
Yeah.
for my tape transcription business. I had to
Oh,
take
yeah.
out a yellow page ad. I remember as clear as yesterday, it was $350 a month.
It's
Do you know what I could
crazy.
do? with $350 a month with the
Yeah.
social media budget.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this was to make maybe $1,500
Mm-hmm.
net income.
Yeah.
So
That's
you've got to
wild.
have a way to meet to attract your clients, the people you want to do business with, the people you want to sell to. How
To
how,
you.
how?
Mm-hmm.
I can even like what 10, maybe it was 10, 15 years ago. I don't can't remember when I started. 2006 maybe. So
Mm.
man, that was almost 20 years ago, where I first started, being a personal chef. And it's like, so how do we
Mm-hmm.
get these clients? Well, they gave us recommendations. Maybe you could get some PR, which I was fortunate enough to do that, get some PR. And it's not easy to get PR because we're
Yeah. I
here
can
in
imagine.
newspapers and magazines. And fortunately, through networking, I got someone who says, hey, you cook for me, I'll get you some PR.
You're like,
And
yep.
I don't realize what a gift that was, because years later, I approached her to do a PR campaign. And I was like, it costs how much? It was thousands.
Like, oh, you want another meal?
But it worked out for me. But there was just like, what do we do? What do we do to get clients as personal chefs? And that was just at the onset of Google and Google Ads. And a few of us
Mm-hmm.
said, well, let's try some Google Ads. And for back in the days, the good old days, $50 a month, you could show up in the Google
Wow.
search results. I mean, Gary Vee talks about the good old days of Google Ads with his company's wine store, when you could buy
Yeah.
Google Ads for a penny. We didn't realize how
That's
good we had it.
crazy. Man.
That's what got me clients. Now, today,
Mm-hmm.
I have a little bit of experience with Google Ads. You're going to have to
Mm-hmm.
spend a whole lot more than that. And with $50 a month, $50 a day would be your
Ain't
minimum.
gonna do it. Mm-hmm.
So, as a business owner, either we're going to shell out the cash for paid visibility, or
Mm-hmm.
we're going to try to get a little bit of organic, which leads us back to social.
Social media. Yeah.
And so I kind of straddle the fence between, influencer or full-time content creator working with Raven Lee's TV, and
Yeah.
business owner and working with other business owners who are wanting to get more visibility for their business. And I can see it from
Yeah.
both places, and it's all good, whether you're
Mm-hmm.
just creating content with you yourself as the brand, as the
Yeah.
product, or you're promoting someone else's product. Um, so I'm just wondering, like, what is your how do you look at that? Do you because you're the product now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're the brand.
I am the face of the brand. My goal, my like, long term, right? Because like I built this audience and I like want to utilize it and I want to like continue to build a community and create safe space for women that look like me that care about the things I care about. But I've always had goals and dreams about scaling in ways that are not me being the face so much. Like, maybe a actual ecom product based brand of my own tech accessories that can be placed in Best Buy or Target, like down the line to where I don't have to be the face of the brand or, even honestly, truly, if you asked me a year ago and this hasn't changed much, I really want to like develop an app or a software of some kind and like maybe sell it, sell it to somebody who really wants it and go about that, which also doesn't require my face. I don't feel unhappy with being the face of my brand, but I do think like 10 years from now, I may want some sense of change. And so I think, and I think a lot of content creators should always be thinking about like scaling their business in a way that they don't need to show up in the same capacity as they are right now, maybe in 10 years or 5 years, or I don't know, depends on how long, they feel like they can sustain. I think it's always important to be thinking of the next thing and definitely think of the next thing that doesn't require so much of you physically. Maybe your brain space, maybe your thoughts, maybe your ideas, but having you personally have to get on a camera and be the face of that business too, like opting out of something like that, trying to think through your options.
I love that. And those options are like always going through my head,
Yeah.
for myself. I don't have as much time on the clock
Well,
as you have,
that's not
but
true.
I'm not slowing down anytime soon. And also
Yeah.
for the brand that I work for. And those things take time
Hmm.
to develop,
Hmm.
sometimes time and money.
Yes.
And
Usually.
but it can be done because we've
Yeah.
seen people do it. We've
Hmm.
seen it happen to
Yes.
where it looks like what it looks like is, oh, they just
Hmm.
popped up out with this product,
It doesn't
but we
ever happen
know
like
that has
that.
maybe been months and possibly even years
Yeah.
in the works.
Yeah.
But it is a path that's open and available
Hmm.
should you want to do it. And
Yeah.
if you have been maybe like some of my viewers creating content for a while and you're making a good living from it, maybe you might want to consider socking some of that money away. Not to say that you
Hmm.
have to 100% self-fund, but so that you have some options
Yeah.
for taking it in another direction if you choose to
Yep.
in the future. And
Precisely.
that and that's a lot. That's a lot. And I know that you have a child, you are
Yeah.
married, you have a job, you have a business, part-time
Yeah.
business. So how do you manage to balance all of this?
I don't. And I think,
Why is that
but
everybody's answer?
because, I think it's the truth. I think balance is just not the right word. Like I've always thought that it's like, oh, how do you balance? You don't, you just maintain. Like everything requires different amounts of you in different seasons. Sometimes my kid needs me and I have to show up for him. And so the business and all those things just kind of they have to get in where they fit in, and sometimes the business needs me. And so I have to focus in on that. And I have to ask my partner, hey, can you step in and do X, Y, and Z so that I can maintain and focus on this for now? It's like, I don't think that's balance, because balance always looks like if you look at a scale and you look at balance, it's like this. But my life is like this, it's like I don't have balance. But I think, having a good support system around you, people, whether that's a team that you hire or it's family and friends or whatever it is, people who can support you through different seasons when and where you may need them. I think that's the key of maintaining and sustaining, and like if you can just get through some of those rough seasons, don't gotta look pretty. Sometimes I feel like a bad mom. Sometimes I feel like a bad wife. Sometimes I feel like a bad business owner. Like all those things exist, but I get through the season and then I level out a bit. And I'm like, okay, I had to do that. Like I had to do that to get to this point. So not really sure if I would call that balance, but that is how I maintain.
I get that.
Yeah.
I like that word maintain. And speaking of maintaining, what about self-care and maintenance on
Hmm.
your person?
I could be better. I could be better. I think this is not just because I run this business and like, show up to the capacity I show up. It's just it's deeper than that for me. It's feeling the pressure to perform and show up for the people around me versus for myself. And I think that comes from like being a mom and being the oldest daughter and just feeling like you have to be everything for everyone. I'm getting out of that. Like I'm working my way out. My self-care is better than it was a year ago. And I suspect that a year from now, it'll be better than it is right now. But I definitely could be better with that. I do take days off. Like today, we're doing this. And I'm like, after this, I'm done for the day. Like, I'm not going to exhaust myself. I'm tired. I'm a little burnt out. I got some stuff coming up soon that's going to require a lot of energy. I'm moving in 10 days. Like, I
You're
just,
moving?
in 10 days. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. So all that's happening in the background. I'm going to take a day off and I'm not going to feel guilty for it. So I've been trying to do more of that.
Well, I do know that you have like your little home gym set up. And it appears, because
Hmm.
everything you see on social media ain't true, but it appears that on a regular basis, you're getting a little workout in
Yeah.
because it's so convenient.
Yes. I think the home gym for me was self-care, right? Because it's like if I had to depend on going to the gym every day, I would not go. I know that about myself. It's just like the getting ready and the driving and I wouldn't do it. So I think for me, that is self-care. It's like put it in the house So I have no excuse. That has been helping. I do try to be consistent with that when I can. I feel better. I notice I feel better when I'm like working out consistently, but I also know that sometimes, like I'm in a season right now where I'm like, it's been 4 or 5 days. I haven't touched my gym, but that's okay. That's okay too. You know what I mean? Sometimes self-care is taking a rest period. So, but yes, I do have the home gym. It definitely helps.
Yeah, that's important. It's very important because this in this arena, in this business of content creation and social media, or even just being self-employed, you can actually go 24/7. You can be on 24/7.
Yeah.
Most of us don't know when was the last time we took a full day off.
Yeah.
We might have had an off day, which is like, oh, I'm just doing this, and then
Yeah.
I'm going to be off.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we just don't have full days off. So you look up and you are completely run down, burnt out, and your body actually says, okay, now you're sick. So now you can't do nothing. Now what?
Yeah.
So we have to really be careful about that.
Yeah.
Um, I want to ask you a little bit about the content, like what drives your content creation creativity. Like I
Yeah.
know you may get a piece of tech in and you're like, oh, I can make a video about this or that, but how do you plan your content? Let's just say.
Yeah. Ooh. I'm actually in a season of restructuring my entire business. Because I realized that I did not have a good system. I had a good system for how my business was running a year ago, but since my business has scaled and changed, I don't currently have a great system for planning. Now, how I've been getting by in the meantime, I have a idea list. I always keep an idea list, and I'll add ideas 2 a.m. in the morning, and so when I'm feeling like creative or like I don't know what to create, I head straight to that idea list. My format is very simple. There's A roll and there's B roll for me. That's the format of my content 90% of the time. Or there's all B roll and a voiceover. So I would say the planning for me is more so, how am I going to approach this thing? Like, am I approaching it in a negative way? Am I talking about it in a positive way? Am I, trying to get people to stop and go, whoa, or am I trying to educate, or am I trying to inspire? I think planning for me goes to like, how am I trying to make people feel? Because if I can understand how I want to make somebody feel, I pretty much know how to, just based on experience, how to, frame that content. But as far as like a 7-step plan, I don't have it. I just was like storyboarding. Oh, it's like that. But I was storyboarding on my Remarkable today. And I was like, oh, storyboarding is nice. Like, I don't often do that. And I did it today for shots. And I was like, I might throw this in. Like, I'm in a season of just trying new things and just seeing how they flow, because it's not great. Yeah.
Well, we all struggle with that, especially when you have made a pivot or you've started doing something new. For me, it's this podcast that I just decided on a whim, just like I'm going to have a podcast, and I started it and I got the stuff together, and I figured out along the way, like the different steps I need to take. And it was just today. This is my 8th recording.
Wow.
And it was just today that I said, let me write down my workflow. And I started adding steps. I was like, this is really easy. But then when I put all the steps in, there was like 15 steps from top to bottom. I was like, oh, and then I can think about, well, which items on this list can I offload to my VA? Because I don't need to do all the uploads, downloads, so I don't have to do all that. But it takes, actually, you may be thinking like, oh, this is easy. I don't need a plan for that. I don't need to write it down. But
you do.
When you do, and you see all the different things that is going, right now I'm excited about it. I can't wait to talk to my new guests. I can't wait but there may be a time
where you're like, oh, please, like
today.
Yes,
it would be so much easier to have all my little ducks in a row to know exactly what needs to be done. And to have a flow for it to get it done. But part of that is, it's a little bit different for the content I'm doing now, but you said you keep a list.
Yeah.
Do you
always
ever run out of ideas? And if so, what do you do about it?
Um, I would say this. My list is longer than it should be. Okay, because the opposite for me. I think I would never actually complete all the ideas on my list. Versus, will I ever run out of them? I don't think I run out of ideas, but I get burnt out, right? And that's how I would that's how I would explain running out of ideas. Like, I'm burnt out creatively. I can't perform. I can't create content because it's just nothing's going right. I'm picky, like mentally I'm just not into it. When I feel like that, I step away. I used to be like, oh, just push through, push through, push through. No. Now at this point, when I start to get burnt out, I'm like, step away, go outside, do something fun, do something spontaneous. Sometimes I'll like just snatch my kid. I'm like, let's go to the movies, or like, let's go to the park, or like, let me just get out of my environment and get somewhere different. And like, sometimes I'm out in environment in different spaces, or I'm walking through stores and I find inspiration by being outside and away. But when I'm burnt out and I just don't have it, I just don't have it, and I don't force it. And usually when I'm burnt out, it's not on things that require me to show up anyways. Like, I don't often burn out when I'm doing partnerships. So I'll like wrap my partnerships and then I'm like, I gotta take a break because like I don't have it left in me. But when I'm tired out, I'm tired. And I just allow myself to feel that way.
Yeah, I like that. I think I kind of follow the same rules too. I personally don't do anything I don't feel like doing. I mean, I don't enjoy doing. Not feel like, but I don't enjoy doing. And if
Understandable though.
you
Yeah.
know, I may stop, take a break, go watch some Netflix, come back,
Yeah.
and work at a weird time of night or morning.
Okay.
It's like, I
Like,
guess
pick
in the
up
old days, used to
later.
call it biorhythms, like in your bio, like when your rhythm
Hmm.
is telling you that you should do it. But
Yeah.
so along with that, you were saying that when you first started in this new direction, you were super consistent, posting 5 or more times a week, which
Hmm.
I think that's great. I don't think that's anything that's not doable for anyone. I mean,
Yeah.
5 times a week. Sometimes some platforms are saying 2 and 3 times a day, but 5 times a week. So, what do you have any tips that you can share for being consistent?
Yeah. When I was posting like that, I think for me, it did help with growth. And so I will say this, if you are actively trying to grow, the more you can show up, the better, right? And that's just across the board, any platform. You're trying to grow, the more content you put out, the more visible you are, the quicker that's going to happen for you. However, I think that consistency should be aligned with sustainability, because if you are consistently posting 3 times a week and you can sustain that and your audience understands that that is your capacity and they can meet you there, then that is consistent. I think sometimes people hear consistency and they think I have to post every day, and you would want to be consistent and post every day if you're just trying to grow, because that will give you growth 9 times out of 10. But if you're just trying to get in a good rhythm, I think being consistent, you need to figure out what that looks like for you. And then you just need to sustain that, and that my tips for that are try to plan ahead. Okay. If you are in a space where you can batch content, batch it. Not every not every genre gives room for that. I will be honest. Like, if you're like a prank channel or like reaction, like maybe you can't batch stuff. Maybe it's very like in the moment when it's happening. But if you have the opportunity to batch content and you can shoot 3 videos in one day, that would be my best advice. Because anytime that I batch content, even on my days where I'm not inspired, I already have it ready to go. And like, so to me, when you want to be consistent, plan ahead, batch your content out. Um, what else? Because those are like the main things for me that I can think of. And also find a source of inspiration and like consistently milk it. Like, find the thing that inspires you and have a good flow with being inspired. If that's watching other creators, if that is, having a hobby and like picking things up from your hobby, if that's having your influencer friends that you have conversations with, wherever you can grasp some inspiration, grasp it. Like, get it where you can. I think those are my like tips for that.
I love those tips. That's one thing, and I can't say that it's difficult for me to understand. I definitely understand it, but every single content creator who is struggling, who has said, "Oh, I started a year ago, but I haven't been consistent. I'm struggling with consistency." And I'm starting to dig in and ask other questions. Like, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, what's happened with this? Well, I haven't been consistent. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, then it stops them. It's like, okay, I'm thinking it's either because you didn't have your ideas, because we
Mm-hmm.
can't say, oh, I just don't have enough time, because we all have the same amount of time in the day.
Mm-hmm.
It's how you structure your time. But you didn't have the ideas, you didn't have it planned, or you didn't feel like it. And I talked about this in my last podcast about being creative, and I said I don't do anything I don't feel like doing. That's not really true.
Yeah.
I overall only work on things that I'm happy about
Yeah.
working on. But sometimes you don't feel like it,
Yeah.
but the time is there. So it's like, but I have the time, so gotta get with it.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to make the decision for yourself. Everyone, I feel like you have to make the decision for yourself. Is it worth it or not? When it all comes down to it, is it worth it to you or not? There are plenty of nights where I stayed up extremely late and I had to get up and go to Apple in the morning, and I was editing right before work and like taking my lunch breaks and editing on my lunch breaks because it was worth it to me. You know what I mean? And sometimes worth it doesn't look pretty and it doesn't feel good, but it's like you do what you do to get where you're trying to go. And so either you are in that space and you're feeling that, or you're not. Either one is fine. It's like whatever you are, this is your life. So you have the right to do whatever you feel. But at the end of the day, you have to make that decision for yourself.
Absolutely. And I think one more thing that people constantly ask me about, and I'm going to get you to buy in on this too, is it, they want to know, is it too late to make your mark as a content creator in social
No,
media?
I don't think it ever is. No, just no. I think that seems like a good excuse, and that maybe makes people feel comfortable with the fact that they don't think it's worth it to them, and they use that as like a coping mechanism, like, well, it's so many people doing it, it's so saturated. But I don't believe that that's true. I think that is something that people say, but
Absolutely.
no. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. I see success stories every day,
Yeah.
every single day, and the paths to success are different, but they are
Mm-hmm.
basically able to do the work and get visibility and create an income, create a business, create a name for themselves, whatever they want to do. So,
Yep.
having said that, and this is gone, I would like to know, what is your best advice for someone who is brand new to content creation? If you can wrap that up.
Yeah. Brand new. You're just starting and you're like, help. I think, if you can start brand new and you can figure out what you're excited and passionate about and who it's for, who are you talking to? If you can figure out who you're talking to and then consistently speak to those people, you will have it. It will all work out. But if you can get clear on that early on, what are you passionate about? What do you want to talk about? And who are you talking to? And how to talk to them. If you can do that, that's it.
I
Magic.
love that. I love that. Well, Tayllor, thanks so much for your time.
Of
Thanks for being
course.
on the podcast. I
Of
can't wait
course.
to share this with my audience, and I will see you at work.
Yeah.